Hi and welcome to Tip of the Month. I'm Patrick and I am the support operational lead here with Emply. Today we're going to cover the different feedback settings you can use and an example of an annual performance review and how to set it up. Let's get started. Now, in order for us to make a new feedback to use for our employees, we need to first create the type. The way we create it is we go to the main menu, we find the settings option, which is found in the bottom, and we go to feedback. Here you have the option of creating different types of feedback and whatever functionality you need them to fulfill. Now, by creating a new feedback type, you have certain options you need to cover. The first is of course the title, and you have some visual aids in terms of what is it supposed to represent. But the main areas you need to focus on is what area you should cover with this feedback. Most feedbacks are regarding the employees, but as you see here, you also have the option of having it being about the candidates, the onboarding module, or even specified about the department or the specific team. And depending on what area you're trying to cover, you also have to make sure that you are very clear on what type of answer you are looking for. Are you looking for the specific individual's own opinion on the topic? Then you have the own feedback when they have to review themselves. Or you can base it on the other's feedback, meaning that when you use the feedback and forward it to someone, you also have to tell the person what are they going to give their feedback upon. This can be their manager, this can be the department. There are loads of options, but it's just to specify that these two fill different functionalities. Now, when you have this set up, you also have an additional option to choose from in the settings department. If you decide to put on the relate to event setting, you are able to intertwine it with inviting the specific individual to an event in which you cover this, sort of an interview almost. You have the skills evaluation. This is for the customers who are primarily using the skills settings we also have in Emply, in which you can assign specific skills to the employee, which can then be evaluated during the feedback process. And lastly, we have the summary and action plan, which is our most used feature, which is where you have the sort of follow-up system to the feedback being answered by the employee. So you have some form of both, well, yes, a summary, but also a plan of going forward on how to improve and how to work with it. So this is the basic setup. In terms of actually using it, I have made this annual performance review, which is something that is very common in the Danish market. What we have here is the basic setup of how one would create different questions and different answering methods. In this place, I have chosen to have a different set of score elements, which can be rated from 1 to 5. If I want to change it, I also have the option to switch it from 1 to 10. And I even have the option of changing the titles and descriptions of what individual score means. In terms of what elements I actually want to include in this, if I, for instance, make a new step, I can make a new element based on a score. If I want them to reply with a text or some answer of some sort, if they have to choose between pre-selected options, if there's a date involved somehow, and if there's a number they need to specify, and if they want to include some file they need to describe the whole case with, if, for instance, it's about their CV or personal plan or etc. If you already have certain elements you want to reuse from other previous feedbacks, you also have them in the existing elements part. And the last thing I want to show is the content. That is primarily if you want to create a headline or some form of description of what is the individual going to do now. This is, for instance, one of those things. If I go to a specific employee who has this process already on her profile, you can see that I have two different ways of doing it. Right now I have the same feedback assigned to her in two different ways. This one says in draft. This means that Millie herself has had a look at it and has begun to fill it out, but it's not done yet. How it works in Emply is, if she made this draft, I do not have access to see it. It only belongs to her. So as you can see, it's locked for me. But if I go to this one I have just filled out for the test purpose, but here you can see what the answers have been. Now, I have the option, as I mentioned before, of scheduling an event, which means that I can prompt up and invite them to a specific time slot, and how long is it going to last, what type of work are we going to be doing, and so forth. This is just a basic calendar integration in Emply. Now, the most interesting thing here is the action plan. As you can see, I have typed in different answers, but I can also add, primarily from a managerial point of view, I can add comments and I can add an action list on what we should do about it. Here we could say, how well do you work with your colleagues? I can make a task that says, make work life better. And I can even put a deadline, and I can say, this is something the manager should be doing. And then they will be assigned a task following this feedback to follow up on it. Now, all that has been covered, all comments, actions and answers, all of this will then be put on. If you have turned on the summary and action plan, you can go to the review section and see every single thing here. The questions, you can see the answers, and should you have done it, you can also see the specific comments and action plans that has been made primarily with the manager. And this is basically how we are using this system in Emply, and this is just one example, but please bear in mind there are loads of options, and we are always happy to help and advise you on what works best and how to do it in terms of achieving your goals. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful. If you've got any other suggestion on what we should cover next, make sure to email us at marketing@emply.com. See you next time.